Okay, good afternoon. So this is our L Family Engagement webinar series. This is session number 4, April 15, L Family Engagement Beyond the Classroom. We have Christopher Goodnight. He is an ESL teacher in Kannapolis City School. He's one of the L Teacher Network leaders, and he was also the ESL Teacher of the Year in his school district. And he shared this news in our newsletter in January, at the beginning of this year, when they were notified that he was one of those excellent teachers that we had in the districts in the state. So I want to invite Christopher to start. Then if you can unmute yourself.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. Thank you, Christopher, for being with us today. And please, I'll be moving the slides, switching, so just let me know when you're ready for the next one.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and thank you again for having me today. As Satley said, my name is Christopher Goodnight. I work in Kannapolis City Schools. I appreciate everybody being here on this Wednesday afternoon. I know it's kind of a different situation for everybody right now, so I appreciate everybody's attendance. Sally, if you want to go ahead and go to the next slide. So I just wanted to start off by a little bit about me so that you know kind of my perspective. I always say before and now kind of thing, and you'll kind of get an idea of how I started versus kind of how I think now. But I started off as a kindergarten teacher my first year. I actually really wanted to be a kindergarten teacher when I was going through college. That's kind of what I focused on. I just loved that age. But I only did that for 1 year before then it switched to 5th grade. But even as a kindergarten teacher and obviously as a 5th grade teacher, I was having, I had EL students. I had students predominantly where I was only speaking Spanish. And then especially when I got into the 5th grade position, I kind of became the EL cluster teacher for 5th grade. So I still taught everything 5th grade, but I just would always get the newcomers or get anybody that was learning English as another language. And so usually I would have, 7 or 8 different EL students within my classroom, but I really just started to fall in love, I guess, with our EL friends, just their ability to adapt to new situations, obviously new languages, new culture, and especially the kids just being brave, I guess, to even be able to do that to some degree, because obviously if you've ever lived abroad or lived in another place where they don't speak your language and it's not your culture or anything like that, it can be very nerve-wracking. So I think, I started to see it a little bit differently when I started having such a large group of EL students in my 5th grade classrooms. But then I eventually, I was working on my Spanish, so I kind of related to them because I was trying to learn the language. And so anyways, I was always practicing with them, but I decided 1 year just to kind of quit and actually move to Ecuador. And so then I taught English as another language in Ecuador for about a year. And so that was just, again, icing on the cake sort of thing that really just kind of pushed me even further to kind of see, I guess, our EL friends in a different light. So then eventually, once I came back from that and I went back to 5th grade again and again had the EL cluster, I started looking for an ESL kind of position because I just really fell in love with teaching English as another language and just with just students wanting to learn another language. So then I eventually moved into EL, which is where I'm at this year. This is only my 2nd year as a ESL teacher. And so as I moved into the position, I kind of took on, you could say, a different perspective with ESL. As a general ed teacher, for me anyways, even after doing it for like 6 years as a general ed teacher, I still only focused on my students. And anybody that works with 5th grade, I mean, there's 3 EOGs. There's a math, there's a reading, and there's a science. And so it was very much focusing on just my students, getting my students to grow, worrying about test scores and growth, and which is great. But I never really took another perspective. I never really kind of thought outside of my classroom. I never really thought personally about families what maybe they struggle with at home, and how to maybe help with home life in any kind of way, or kind of just nothing really big picture. I just, again, worried about my classroom. Whereas when I moved into the ESL position, of course, you still have a lot of stress and pressure for student growth. That's never going to change. But at the same time, I had just a different perspective within ESL, and being able to kind of see families differently. For the first time, I started to think more about families and family engagement. And I'll be honest, when I first moved into the position, I really did a lot of research about ESL positions and obviously their role. I always knew ESL positions based on obviously my students going there, but I myself had never been really in that role before. And so I just really, and I even attended a conference the summer before, and I just really got a totally different perspective of what it means to be that kind of teacher. And it was very much like an activist kind of mentality. A lot of people I spoke with had that kind of mentality. So sadly, you can go to the next slide. The next slide talks about kind of the questions that I developed for myself whenever I was trying to think about what can I do, not just for my students, because obviously that's a component of being a teacher, but then when I moved into the ESL role, I really started thinking about the family as a whole unit and kind of looking at it holistically as one big collective group, the whole family and not just the student, because every teacher's going to tell you that that both things kind of go together. You know, if you impact the family, you're going to impact the student and vice versa. And so these are 4 guiding questions that I had that kind of helped me develop a new perspective toward ESL. So for example, number 1, what are we doing to meet the needs of language learners and their families? So that kind of is the incorporation of the student and the family, kind of meeting them where they're at. But then number 2, how can we integrate language learning and development in our family engagement practices? So that was the one that really struck me, that we'll talk about here in a few minutes, but just how to integrate language learning and development, but with family engagement and not just student engagement, because obviously as teachers, we've got to worry about the student engagement, but then to kind of get a broader perspective and open the vision a little bit more about how to integrate it within our family engagement practices. That was one that really moved me. Number 3, how can we meet families where they are and empower them on their journey? So just kind of accepting them as they come. We all know that with ESL, you can see families on all walks of life. And so just kind of figuring out what are their needs and then meeting them where they're at. But then number 4, how am I impacting the home life of a family boost student achievement? So I've read a lot about that, just student achievement and how home life and impacting home life is directly correlated. And that really to me was very surprising because again, as a general ed teacher for whatever it was, 6 years, that wasn't really my concern as much as just working on the student. And so it wasn't really what I focused on. And so moving to this position, I kind of forced myself to realize, wow, it's bigger than just my classroom, and and there's more impact. You know, the more you bring in, the more community members, the more family, the more you all kind of tie it together, the greater the impact within the classroom itself. You can go to the next slide. So I wanted to start with the definition according to WIDA guidelines for family engagement. It says, according to WIDA guideline documents, family engagement can be defined as a relationship between families and educators that is ongoing, mutual, built on trust and respect, focused on student learning and achievement. So the last part's kind of bolded because I think that's the part that impacted me when I read it the most. It's ongoing, it's mutual, it's not just you as a teacher doing everything. It's built on trust and respect, and then focused obviously on the student as well. But I know in earlier series we had talked about family involvement versus family engagement, and we talked about family involvement being just a simple parents come in the building, they go to student teacher conferences, and then maybe they come to a family night, and that's kind of it. And that's this family involvement part. But with this definition, family engagement is a more active role. It's an active role in the school. They're taking on maybe a little bit more of a leadership role in different kind of ways. And again, that can look very different depending on the needs of your school. But again, the biggest part that hit me the most was that it's ongoing, that it's an actual relationship you have with the families. It's an ongoing conversation that you have with them. It's not just okay, I'll see you once a quarter, and then they go home and you don't see them again. I think that is what stuck out to me the most with that itself. You can go to the next one. So before I get into what we've been doing, I wanted to describe the demographics at my school. I don't think I said, but my school is Fred L. Wilson Elementary School, like I said, here in Kannapolis, North Carolina. And the demographics, I think, play a huge role in the school and what you can offer and what is possible. I definitely see that for what it is. So I definitely wanted to share my demographics, but I definitely think what we're doing here at Fred L. Wilson and within our district can be amplified really to any school district. But again, I do acknowledge that demographics can really play a role in what is possible. But our school population is pretty small for elementary school. It's 368 students, 128 students combined with EL Direct and non-identified. So students who have put on their home language survey that they speak another language, but they weren't identified as EL students. So that's 128. So that's out of those 128, we have about 63 though that were directly identified as EL Direct and get served. And then so for our school population, that's about 36% of the population are Hispanic families. And I say Hispanic because, as you can see, the last one, it says all of our families except for one are Spanish speaking who get served. And so this, for the most part, you could generalize and say, even though this is just for my school in the district, you could say that that number, that 36% roughly, is pretty close to the district number. So our district is more populated with Hispanic families than any other demographic or immigrant group. So I think that was important just to kind of go through and make sure that's clear that at our district, it is more of a Hispanic cluster of families. You can go to the next one. So I want to talk about specifically what we're doing at Fred L. Wilson that has really impacted not just our families, but really in the district. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was our English classes. So whenever I got into the position, and I kind of started to form the idea that this is more of an activist role. This is more of a I'm fighting for my students' rights, but also the family's rights to do stuff. And then I thought about, what were things that I enjoyed when I went to another country trying to speak Spanish? What were things that I would have benefited from if I had the opportunity or had been asked for those things? And one of them was obviously a language class. When I taught in Ecuador, because of the school that I worked at, they offered us free free Spanish classes twice a week just for being an employee at the school. And, I found that to be phenomenal because obviously you're living in another country and you're trying to work and make a living, but obviously the language barrier's there. It's everywhere you go. And so I kind of wanted to equate that whenever I started here. And I started in the ESL role. And so when I looked and I talked and spoke with different people, it sounded like we had tried to get something happen in the past, but it never just really came together. And so literally one day I called up the local community college and spoke with the English as another language director there at the community college. And pretty much, lack of better words, she just said, sure, we'll come out. We can organize something. She's like, as long as you do your part and kind of get people there, we'll kind of do our part. So I always kind of thought of the movie Field of Dreams that said, if you build it, they will come. Because that's how I feel. I feel like if I did, like she said, if I did my part, she would kind of do hers. And so that's kind of what we started. We sent out surveys to all the pretty much Hispanic families, like I said, just asking would they be interested in a English class. It would be a free class. The community college at here in Concord they already offer free English classes at the community college, but we wanted them to come to our location, to our school, because even though it's only about 15 minutes away, we just knew that a lot of our families would not drive those 15 minutes to get there. For one reason or not, it can just be hard, especially when you have a family and the classes can be long. And so we just thought maybe if we could bring the class to us and put it in our community, that we could make this work. And so pretty much to do my part, I did have to send out surveys. We got confirmations of, about 40 people interested, 30 people interested. And this was, for the most part, we started off just at our school. We did not open it to the whole district that first semester. It was just at Fredo Wilson. It's kind of like our pilot program. We wanted to see if it was going to work or not. So once I sent out the survey, we got everybody's confirmation. We got a phone number, we got their name. So then the day before, I went through virtually, I think it was about 30 different phone numbers and called every single person just to make sure that it was going to work out, because everybody knows, sometimes we just need reminders. And sometimes a piece of paper is not the best reminder. Sometimes, getting a phone call is the best. So I spent my afternoon just calling every single person. And yeah, it was great. The next day, I want to say we had about 30 people come out just to show interest. The director came out. She speaks like 4 languages, so it's amazing the things that she can say to about anybody, it seems. But she came out and she's really good at motivating people. She's the immigrant herself, been here, I think, 20 years now. And so she's very knowledgeable about some of the struggles they go through. And so she was able to come out and really just give them a good 15-minute just kind of pep talk, if you will, and a motivational speech about why they need to learn English, and just trying to empower them. And I mean, you could see, on most of their faces that they were ready to start. I mean, they probably would have started that day if we would have started, but we registered, I think, in all, by the time she spoke to everybody and got through everybody, I think we had around 20 people in all be able to actually register and commit to the days of the week and everything like that. So that was level 1. We started that. Level 1 was only Monday, Wednesday. It was only twice a week, and it was 3 hours. So they did have to commit to the time. They did have to commit to the days of the week and the fact it was going to be 3 hours. But the great thing about it was they were still getting, so to speak, community college credit, as if they were going to the community college and taking the course right there. However, at the community college, they expect them to go 4 days out of the week. And so with us, they only required them to go 2 days out of the week. And so again, I thought that was a great benefit, again, from to bring it to us locally here at our school. But anyways, then once we had developed that first class, they were able to kind of get through it. I think we ended, just like anybody who's ever taught an English class like this to adults, you always start with high numbers, but then I think we ended with about 12-ish people that first time. And then since then, we've added on 2 other classes. So now we've gone to level 1, then we've had level 2. Now we're up to level 3. So this is our 3rd semester providing and offering the class, and we still have about 15 people in each level. So we have about 15 in level 2 and 15 in level 3. We haven't done level 1 again, just trying to kind of change it up and keep our levels where we can manage them. So right now we can only really manage 2 levels at a time. But going back to the slides, we have classes held 4 days out of the week. So since we have 2 different levels, it's Monday, Wednesday is level 2, and then Tuesday, Thursday is level 3. But again, they're both from 9 in the morning till 12. A lot of our families that are able to come obviously either don't work at that time, or they just don't work and they're just, they're able to come. They have the time to come. Their husbands might work. In our classes, we do pretty much all have women, and so their husbands are working or what have you, and so they have time to come, and they're able to come during those times. We would love to offer them during the afternoon to kind of get different people who did work throughout the day, but again, we're still kind of working out some of those details to figure out if we could do that later. But like it says, the parents are offered credit just as if they're attending the college class, which I thought has been great. Within the classes, it's just beautiful because they've just been able to make this community amongst themselves. As you can imagine, there's 15 of them roughly in every class. And so after a semester with each other, they're talking, they're making friends with each other, with people that they didn't know prior to. Sometimes they throw parties for each other if it's a birthday or something. So it really has turned into something more than just an English class, which has been something very organic because we didn't really plan it, and I didn't really think of it like that it was going to turn into something like that. But it's been a very organic process for that development. As you can see in the pictures, the bottom left picture is are the students working. The classroom that we were able to use was actually a 4th grade intervention classroom that we weren't using at the time. This year we only had 2 4th grade classrooms. We're still kind of building as we move up some grades, but this classroom in particular was not being used, so we were able to take it. I was able to put some tables in there, some chairs. We decorated it with some cultural flags because at our school we are a magnet school for cultural studies as well. So I was able to kind of gather up some things. Some of the teachers at our school donated a few coffee mugs. We even got a Keurig donated and some coffee. I usually buy snacks every week and keep like this little area for snacks, but we tried to make it as inviting as possible so that when they walked in, they felt like it was their classroom and it wasn't just a cold kind of bare wall classroom, but we tried to make it comforting and familiar. As well, we put any kind of resources that they might benefit from job opportunities to community resources as well, so that when they walk in, they really do get a sense of we want you here kind of feeling about it. When they first walked in, we made sure to go over like, hey, like our teachers donated this stuff, like all of this is for you, like we want you to be here, please continue to come and feel supported. The other great thing that we were able to do since then is that we've been able to offer this now to the district. So now that we've done the level 1 that first semester 3 semesters ago, we saw that it was successful, and so we talked to some of the other district leaders and the schools, and we opened it to any family that just needed free English classes and wanted the opportunity to learn English. And so we opened it to any school in the district. And so again, I mean, we had, I think 40-ish people come just to register and show interest when we did finally open it to the district. But I mean, we even offer it down to the preschool level that we have for the district and all the way up to the high school. And so it's now become a very district and community offered resource that we have at the school. So we're very proud of that it has kind of become a district thing. The last thing I wanted to talk about, within the English classes, we've had other opportunities that have arisen because of the English classes. So for example, field trips. We were able to get some funds through Title III that were oriented toward family programs and literacy and outreach. And so I was able to use some of the funds to actually buy laptop computers for the classroom so that the parents were able to start learning some technology skill and some computer skills, because we realized that a lot of our students that we had in the class really didn't have the opportunity to really develop any computer skills, to some degree at all. Some of them had some knowledge, but some of them had no knowledge at all. And so it was very eye-opening as a teacher when we asked parents to get on and sign up for something and all this, and then to see some of them weren't even familiar, with using a mouse or using the basic keyboard. And so we were able to purchase, with the Title III funds, we were able to purchase the laptops, and now the English class are able to integrate some technology within their English classes and kind of teach some technology skill. The other thing that we were able to do is take them on a field trip in Charlotte, downtown Charlotte, which is about 30 minutes from here on a bus. We were able to take them to a field trip to Discovery Place. Discovery Place is pretty much a science museum. It's very hands-on. And so whenever we were discussing how to use the funds, and I had suggested a field trip, but something very hands-on, that was the first place I thought of. Being a 5th grade teacher, we had taken our 5th graders there quite often, and I just know it was very hands-on. It was very engaging. It has a lot of neat things to look at. And I thought it'd be a great place for the parents to really start to use their English that they had learned in the class. So we were able to even put the funds toward not just going on the field trip, but again, being able to use one of our activity buses here at school, and we all traveled together. So it was a very unique experience. Within the community college, they actually do field trips as well. They go to local places, like they might go to a Walmart or to a grocery store, and they just talk about basic skills as well. So we actually had one planned for pretty much now, but obviously that was canceled along with everything else at school. So that's been unfortunate, but there were definitely field trip opportunities that some of them would never get otherwise. Like I said, going to downtown Charlotte for some of them was just a treat in itself, but then getting to go for free to the Discovery Place was just a whole nother level. But then obviously the field trips that are more local as well would have really benefited a lot of them, because how often do they get to go to a grocery store but then have someone explain in English about things you should say and remember the vocabulary that we talked about, and kind of make it almost like a classroom right there in the grocery store. The other things that I wanted to really touch base on with the English classes, from the English class, again, we've had more parent involvement outside of the class. We've had a few parents wanting to participate in their children's classrooms, or our school is a bilingual school as well. And so some of them have wanted to know, could they go into a Spanish speaking classroom and help with maybe not just their students, but other students, or reinforcing Spanish, or whatever they could volunteer to do. We've had several parents want to now volunteer outside. Now that they've become familiar with the school, the atmosphere, and the environment, they feel more comfortable, and they're asking for more involvement. The last thing was we've actually had job opportunities presented. The director of my district for ESL spoke with me one day and had just asked about interest for jobs. He said that there's job opportunities through NC Works. They wanted to come and just kind of talk about some job opportunities and how to apply online and things like that. So a lot of things have stemmed just from the English classes themselves. And so you can see the field trip over on the right hand side, two of the moms on one of the equipment there at the Discovery Place. And then at the very top is a group picture of all of us standing whenever we got there. But I think we had, I want to say it was like 22 people actually go on the field trip itself. You can go to the next slide. So from the English classes kind of stemmed a bigger idea. And so then we had an idea afterward to come up with just a community center, a dedicated place that could be for the English classes, but really any class, because once we gave the English classes, we decided, you know what, these have been super successful. We've had a lot of good feedback. And so why don't we just offer other classes, not just a language class, but just classes that might just educate parents in general, English speaking or otherwise language speaking parents. So that's what we did. We took the same space. You can see the picture on the left-hand side is the same classroom, but we just started to gear it then. On the days that we didn't have our English classes, we wanted to make and provide classes that we call workshops for parents. And so we decided to dedicate the class and actually label it community center. We actually had a community center grand opening one night when we had a family night, just to show parents, this is the center, this is the space, you're invited here for anything. So we kind of started like we do every time we start something, we give out a survey. The survey pretty much had 9 or 10 different topics. I had spoke with maybe 4 or 5 different people trying to gather ideas about what topics would be appropriate for parents, what would maybe be interesting for parents to take, what interest might be shown. And I wanted to have high levels of engagement, but I wanted them to be kind of hot topics that would really grab the attention. So I gave out a survey with about 10 different topics. And as you can see, it says this can change every year. And I really think it should change every year, because the needs of your school will change about every year. And so we gave out 10, and we just asked parents to choose 5 or 6 out of those 10. Which ones would they come to if we provided a workshop once a month? And if it was high quality and given by an expert or professional on the topic, would they attend if provided this opportunity? And I think I got back like 120 surveys, and about 100 of them said that they would be interested. And so I was very motivated to keep going with it and kind of turn it into something. And so from there, I kind of took everybody's survey and I tallied up everything, which one had the most hits. And then from there, I made a schedule. I found out the 6 topics that had the most hits and had them and seemed to be most popular. We made a schedule. I sat down with about 4 different people at my school, and we just sat down and figured out which one should we start with, which topic should go next, what month should we do this in, what's the date we're going to do it, and then who would be able to be a speaker. And so we kind of brainstormed as a group and came up with the dates, the speakers, and then from then we just simply obviously we had to contact all the speakers to make sure they were available, that they were interested in doing it. But once we had everything confirmed, we made a flyer, and we made a flyer that went out in, I want to say October, end of September, October of last year. We gave out the flyer, and it was for the whole school year, so that the parent could see starting in November, we're going to start with our first coffee talk. We call them coffee talks, but parent workshops. So they could see the whole school year. They could see the exact date it was going to be on, what the topic was, and who the speaker was, but also the time, so that any families that needed to, they could plan around anything that might be an inconvenience if it was just spared on them at that minute. But with the topics and all the coffee talks were on a Friday morning at 9 o'clock in the morning, and they're only supposed to be around an hour and 15 minutes depending, but each one of them are supposed to be highly engaging with an activity, maybe some background or a little presentation, but the whole goal was that parents could walk away with something. And so once I gave out the flyers and gave out the reminders, we started it back in November. And so we have topics ranging from bully awareness to technology awareness, like how much technology is too much, but also about like apps that kids can download that are dangerous, as in, they can hide photos, or like maybe, it's not what it seems to be, kind of technology things, just to make parents more aware. We also had one on financial literacy. So we had a bank come out and give a talk about how to save and what credit looks like and all that. We've had talks on math. How is math different nowadays as it was taught maybe 20 or 30 years ago? I mean, as you can imagine, like the topics are just, there's a variety of topics. And again, all that depends on what your parents choose. I think that's very important that they're the ones choosing the topic, because obviously I think they're more likely to go to it. But again, we offered kind of the same platform. Since it's on a Friday morning, it never kind of ran into our English classes, because English classes were Monday through Thursday. So on Fridays, we had people coming out, and like I said, they were free to make their coffee and get a snack. Again, we tried to have the same atmosphere that we did with the English classes. But as I was saying, we do have an English version and then a Spanish version. So like on one Friday, we have the English version, and then a speaker might come out just for that one. But then that next Friday would be the Spanish one. And then we'd have a different speaker come out for the Spanish one, but the topics would remain the same. It was really nice too, because with these English classes, I would always go to every class and advertise the talk. So that was a great marketing way. I could kind of advertise the coffee talks and the workshops, but also I would always encourage the families to go to the Spanish workshop, but then also go to the same workshop the next week in English, just to practice their English, to figure out, did they understand as much as they thought they did. And so that was always a great opportunity for them as well, just to hear it in Spanish, but then also turn around and hear it in English. But this opportunity has been going on. This is the first school year we've been doing it. All of this kind of stuff right now that's going on has kind of delayed some of the months that we had. But we started off pretty well back in November, but there's definitely been some things that we know in August we're going to revamp. So Sally, if you want to go to the next one. So some of the things that I wish I would have thought of beforehand. So if you're somebody out there thinking, wow, like I'd like to do this, these are things that I guess in hindsight's 2020, you just don't think about it. But for example, just making sure that your times work out. For example, our time was at 9, and I realized that really works out for our Hispanic families, but it doesn't really work out as well for our English speaking families. And so even though I had such a high interest initially tell me that they would come, around 100 people actually for almost any given topic said that they would be willing to come. But again, I know that with the English speaking side, we've struggled obviously not to get anywhere close to those numbers, just because a lot of them have to work, and a lot of them say that, if it was in the afternoon, I might be able to come, or if it wasn't this time. And so that's something that we're going to have to rethink for next year and refocus, maybe offering either earlier in the morning time before they go to work, or even offering something in the afternoon around 4 o'clock, 4:30, so that we can get those families that are going to work and then maybe coming straight back to get to this. But it is only once a month. I think a lot of families did really enjoy that part, that it's only once a month. But again, I think our biggest thing would be the time. We were fighting against other factors that we couldn't really control. The other thing that we thought about was getting the names of each person to assure their attendance. And what I mean by that is when I first gave out my survey, I didn't, for the most part, really care so much about who said they were coming. I was just wanting to know numbers so that I could figure out which topic was most popular and had more interest. So I just wanted to know, was it 40 people or 30 people or 60 people? I didn't really so much worry about their names or contact information. Well, as you can imagine, that'd probably be a good thing to have, just so that you could either send a group text message or however you communicate with parents at your district level. But just sending out messages just to assure, I think in this sense, peer pressure is actually a good thing, because I mean, I'm definitely on board with people. If you don't remind me, sometimes even the day before something, it just slips my mind. And we sent out a bunch of reminders and we sent out things, but I think having their name and maybe having some sort of group chat or having some sort of group messenger for those families that say they're interested, so that you could send them a personal directed message to them like a day before or a few days before, I think would have helped dramatically. The third thing we said was make sure that all schools, if you're going to do it district wide, which for our district not being that big, we made ours district wide, but making sure that everybody's on board and sees your vision. I know that at Fredo Wilson, my director is kind of right there with me. She kind of sees what the projects that I kind of throw at her, and she kind of agrees with them and sees the big picture of it and sees how much that could help. But if everybody in your district doesn't have that same vision and that same, I guess, goal, then I think that makes it hard, because not every school is going to advertise the way that your school's advertising if you're the home school or if you're the hub school. Or maybe not everybody in your district might even take it seriously to advertise or to want to, it does take a lot of effort. I'll say that. And so if you don't have everybody on board, you're going to be doing a lot more work, because obviously it's a lot of work to try to get parents to come to something, especially if it's once a month. But I think that would be a huge thing, making sure that you have your district to kind of back you, but then just sending out more reminders. I mean, I think I learned through all this process, the more you can remind somebody, the better. And so those were just some tips that I wanted to give for anybody maybe interested in doing this at their school and kind of offering coffee talk. You can go to the next slide. The next slide is just a sample of what our flyer looks like. And so you can see on the left-hand side, it's the coffee talk. That's what we call them, workshops for parents. But then on the right-hand side, it's charlas con café, which is the Spanish equivalent, as best as possible. And so we just kind of did it front and back, and we handed that out. This flyer actually, I just went ahead and started this one in January so you could get the idea, but we actually started back in November. But this one went from January to April. It has the date, it has who's going to be the speaker, and then it even has the topic on the right-hand side. And then it says on the left-hand side, who, what, when, where, kind of just giving parents a little bit of a background of why should they even come and what's it going to be about. But we would send this out on our family platform. We have a platform here in our district where we can send things out to all the parents at one time. So we were able to send this as a PDF on that platform so that parents could get this about once a month. We would send it out. And then we did give this out back in October when we had our first family night. We would hand these out and make sure that everyone got one and was aware what it was, and go ahead and look at all of the dates and kind of try to start getting ideas of the topics you would like to go to. But I wanted to share that just to kind of give you an idea of what what it might look like to see just our flyer, for example. You can go to the next slide. Really quickly, I want to talk about some other ideas that are kind of coming down the pipeline that we've kind of developed some new projects for, just to kind of keep all of these things kind of going and kind of keep them interconnected. We just kind of keep coming up with new projects and keep coming up with new visions that would kind of go along with the foundation that we had started. So for example, creating a welcome packet for your newcomer families. Again, I think people had talked about this in our district in the past, but we had never made anything. And so my goal is to come up with a district packet that would be something that every school would have. And if you have a newcomer family, they get one instantly that first day, and it would have an assortment of information that would be beneficial to the families, from clinics to restaurants to really to anything, help with utilities. We have a lot of community involvement with churches within our district, where they volunteer or they donate a lot of things to families. And so really just having any contact information. The other thing that we talked about doing was just providing adequate supports from the community for immigration issues. That's always a hot topic, I think. But again, reaching out to the community and making sure that we're constantly involving the community, because as you just heard, a lot of our workshops are part done from school employees, professionals within the district, but part of our workshops were actually, we had to reach out to the community and get them involved and ask banks to come in and different leaders in the community. So again, asking the community to come in, get an expert on the topic, and just providing things that I think that families really are interested in and need, but kind of working more toward giving workshops directed toward immigration issues. Number 3, pairing newcomer families with a family who has a similar background yet is established. So pretty much mentor families. This would kind of go with the welcome packet. Our goal is to start coming up with a list of families that would be interested in being mentor families, and we're preferably wanting families that have been here for at least 5 years, so they at least have some foundation, and they have a background in the United States, and they have knowledge of their surroundings. But kind of pairing those people who are willing with maybe a family that is also willing, that has just gotten here from another country, just to kind of let them be a mentor to those families, because that can be a hard transition. The last 2, creating opportunities where families across the district can meet one another and find supports amongst themselves. So when I thought of this, I kind of thought, and it sounds weird, but like a speed dating kind of situation, where families would go in, we would serve dinner, but then they kind of have like little stations or something. They would be able just to get to know each other and kind of, take 5 to 10 minutes, and you get to know a family and figure out what's your interests, what's the interest of the other family, and connect, because we have so many families in our districts that really like to sew, and really good at making clothes, for example, or cooking, or they have restaurants. But allow those families to figure out what are your skills and what are my skills, and let's make a connection, and let's come together and become stronger, because we're finding connections amongst ourselves and not just being isolated. Because a lot of times I think it can be very isolating, especially when you first get here from another country. Just like maybe I felt a little bit like that when I was in Ecuador. You kind of feel a little bit isolated because you don't know anything, you don't know where to go. But just providing an opportunity for families to get to know each other in a different way, but make it district-wide, because families from my school almost never talk to families from another school. So providing opportunities for families to talk across the district. The last thing is providing mental health workshops or information that could support families coming from trauma-based experiences. We all know, if we've worked with EL students, that there's a lot of trauma that come with those students. Not always, but a lot of times that is the case. And so I think that impacts the home life, but also school life dramatically. And so really just meeting them where they're at, and not pretending like something isn't happening or that it isn't a big deal, but kind of again, just filling the needs as you see them fit. You can go to the next slide. So the last slide are just questions, really maybe to get everyone thinking. So just critical questions to ask yourself if you're interested in doing something like this. Again, I fully acknowledge that what we're doing is just like a sliver of what really could be done, that there's hundreds of ideas that I've read about and heard about over the last year or two that have been phenomenal. Again, you can't do everything. You kind of have to choose what's on your heart and the one that matters the most to you and what you feel like are the needs of your families, and kind of go at it with all your heart. But these are some of the questions that were guiding questions. But again, questions now that you've kind of seen what we're doing. But what are the missing pieces of the puzzle at your school? So again, thinking, what are the needs? What are those missing pieces? And just trying to fill that area. What can you implement that is cost efficient and truly supports the needs of the community? Because we all know that things cost money, and sometimes we just don't have those Title I funds anymore, or those Title III funds, or whatever funds we've been using. Sometimes they're just not there. And so what are some things that are creative but really gets your families involved? And we said it really gets them engaged and gets them to become more of an active leader. Number 3, would educational workshops work for your parents, or might there be another way to educate and support your parents? Again, we acknowledge that for us, these workshops have been really nice and very, it motivates us to keep going with them and kind of try to grow it as big as possible. But maybe you can see a roadblock already, and that's not going to work for you. And so again, thinking about what would work for you then. Number 4, if parents are interested, what are ways to get parents motivated to come to schools and to attend a workshop? That's again a very big question, because marketing can only do so much. So for us, and I'm sure most schools have said this, offering food can be a super motivational thing for families for whatever reason. If you say you're going to offer breakfast or dinner, I mean, you have people show up out of nowhere just because you offer food. Number 5, does mental health or trauma play a role in the family's attitudes or behaviors? And should we as a school address that? And what I mean by that is, as a school, should we get other people involved, other professionals? Is that really something we feel like we should be involved in? And if yes, what should we do about it? And so these are just 5 questions I wanted to pose to everyone, just to kind of get your ball rolling and thinking about your school in particular and how things might look for you. And you can go to the next one. I think that's it.
All right. We have a lot of comments and questions. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So thank you, Christopher, for sharing all these great ideas, experience, everything that you have been supporting in your school district. So let me see. A lot of people have asked if we are going to share the slides, and the answer is yes. We have a page in our bit.ly PD dashboard. I'm going to share the link in the chat and in a second. Okay. Chat. Let me see if we can do this. Multitasking these days is hard. Okay, so is bit.ly/PD dashboard, and okay, there it is. So all the archives are there. If you go to the link that says webinar resources, you will see the archives, the video recordings, the slide decks. So this, in specific number 4, you will see it in the next couple of days, because it takes a little bit while the video renders. And once it's done, we're going to share the link, and you will have access to the slide deck as well, and with the information. So if you want to contact Chris and get some more ideas in a one-on-one setting, you will be able to do that as well. So we have some comments. Great ideas, excellent. Thank you for sharing this. You're doing a great job. I would love to see if maybe Nareni Martinez can access her audio and she shares, because she was talking a little bit about some ideas and support they have in Winston-Salem. So if she can share, let me see if I can find her and we unmute her if she wants to share. Nareni?
Hi.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
yes.
Go ahead.
So I was just sharing that I am the English Learner Parent Engagement Support Specialist here in Winston-Salem. And we also have ESL classes for the parents, and they love those classes. We also work with our community college here in Winston-Salem, and they also provide the instructor for those classes. and our families are really happy to learn something new every day. And right now, since the schools are closed, they're also doing online learning. So they're happy that they can still learn even though the schools are closed.
Yeah, that's great. I know, I'm glad you said that a different county, because I meant to say that I know that talking to several other districts and counties at community colleges, like you said, a lot of community colleges do offer these. Usually, they're free English classes for pretty much an ESL class for adults. And so, a lot of times, from what I understand, is a lot of schools can just call up their community college and work something out with their community college to get something like that started. A lot of community colleges are very willing to keep the program going, and a lot of times if that means going into an elementary school or a high school or what have you, a lot of times it's just it's another way for them to keep kind of advancing their ESL classes within the community college.
Yes, thank you. We have another question, Chris, and by different participants. They
Okay.
wonder if the school provided child care during these sessions that you were having in the mornings.
So that's a great question. That's probably something that comes up all the time amongst families. And the answer to that is just a simple no. At this point, we are not. And I would say out of the 40 families that came to show interest, I would probably say, let's just say about 8 of them did have to, we're not able to attend for that very reason. We just could not work it out, to have any sort of childcare. We brainstormed different things, different ways and ideas that maybe we could somehow get someone, with somebody to kind of watch the children during those time periods, but it just nothing really seemed to work out for the staff or for the parents. Like it just wasn't a mutual thing at the time. But that's something that we definitely wish we could in the future work out, or maybe even get the community college involved with their early childhood program, or just something, getting somebody involved again to kind of figure that piece out. Because I know if we were to offer childcare right away, we would have at least 10 more families being able to attend. But the problem is if you offer it in the morning, you have those people that that their children go to school, and so a lot of them don't have their children because a lot of their children go to school. But then you still have those that have like the babies and the toddlers. But then if you wait till after school and do it at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock and do the class in the afternoon, you still need childcare because now the children that were at school are now at home. And so we just thought the best option for us was to do it in the morning when all the children go to school. And we just knew that we were not going to get to everybody. And we just had to be okay with that for right now until we come up with a better option. But that is always a question from the families that do have small children is, do you offer childcare or anything like that? And again, at this time, the answer has been no.
Okay, we have another question. It says, since you are the ESL teacher, did you schedule your students around these parent classes, or did you teach students at a different time so you could participate in those sessions?
So with this opportunity and really all the opportunities, I did not have to teach any of the classes. The English classes were all provided by the community college. They provided an instructor for both levels, for level 2 and level 3 and level 1, all 3 actually. And the teacher has pretty much remained the same that they've provided. So that's been good. Just the consistency, the style that she teaches has been consistent. So I have not actually had to teach. Obviously, I wouldn't be able to, being they have classes starting pretty much right when school starts into the very end of the day. So I don't really have per se time and wouldn't be able to do that, which is why I really enjoyed partnering with the local community college. They were able to offer the credit, the college credit, but then offer a professor to come out those 2 days a week, and they drive to our campus twice a week, and they teach the class. So we as a school have not had to do anything other than provide the space and get the participants to show up every week.
Okay, and we have, for your coffee talks, are the speakers paid or are they volunteers?
Yeah, that's a good question. The coffee talk speakers are all volunteer. For example, we had our guidance counselor do one week, so she has an off week and on week, so she has time to pull students and have one-on-one sessions with them. So we made sure to schedule her coffee talk on one of her weeks that she knew that she was going to be available on a Friday morning. The people from the bank, they were actually from the credit union, and so the credit union was like, they jumped at the opportunity. We didn't even really have to ask except for just that one time, and they wanted to know when it was and what they could do, and they offered it in English and in Spanish. They had both people come out, like I said, one week and then Spanish the other week. Every person that we asked has pretty much either been a community member, as in like that, like the credit union, or it has been someone who is within our district, who's either at the district level, at the central office to come in and talk about something, or within our school, we have like our curriculum coach. She's able to teach about reading and reading strategies at home and how to kind of use reading strategies that we're using in the classroom, but at home. And what does that look like? And she modeled a read aloud and modeled some of the higher order thinking questions so that parents really got a good idea. So yes, everybody that who has come so far has all been volunteer based, and that was our number one requirement, was that obviously we had to make sure it was all that they knew that it was a very volunteer basis.
Okay, so I don't see any more questions. It's 4:30. We thank everyone for being with us today. Thank you, Christopher, for sharing. We are going to upload in the next couple of days the video recording and the slide deck on the link bit.ly/PD dashboard in the webinar series. So you won't see it today. If you're looking today, we have to wait a little bit until the video is rendered, but we will upload this information so it's accessible for everyone. If anyone wants to say a little more, we are going to hang out for a little bit. If you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand and I will unmute you so you can ask Christopher.
And thank you for everybody attending that has attended.
Awesome. I see Brandy. I'm going to unmute you so you can ask your question. Hello? Brandy? Or maybe this is something before. I'm going to lower everyone's hand. If you continue online and you want to ask a question, please raise your hand and I will unmute you. Thank you again, everyone, for being with us. And I think I'm going to stop. Okay, we have one question. Let me see. Beatrice?
I just have a question about the certificates. Are we getting any certificates for these webinars?
Yes, the webinar is 1 hour, so attendees get a certificate for one content hour. If you watch or have participated in the other sessions of the webinar series, you will get 1 hour per session. It's a total of 5 hours.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. I'm going to stop the recording, Chris, but if
Okay.
we